Welcome back, everyone. Today we have an article review, and we're going to go over the article that Daria Hassenstab wrote 2 to 3 weeks ago on the topic of the European Union tackling coronavirus together, and more in specific, Ursula Von Der Leyen and her policies that she decided to implement. And since we've already seen their effect, we will give you our analysis of how it has turned out. Has it turned out well? Has it turned out badly? Well, we're about to find out. Let's go over the article. So, during the past few weeks, multiple European governments closed their borders to prevent COVID-19 from spreading all over their territories. But let's be honest, this was already a bit late. We know that coronavirus had already infected most countries within Europe, so closing borders was not going to affect the spread of the virus, but rather the free movement of people and goods. The latter, the free movement of goods, being the most consequential one. And this, what caused, was traffic jams up to 70 kilometers long on the German-Polish border, or 100 kilometers long at the Austrian-German border, both high traffic points during goods movement. So Germany and France all of a sudden began cutting the exports of masks and other vital health material through their borders, so not an entirely solidarity measure with their respective neighbour countries. Today, Ursula von der Leyen decided to step out and talk to the world, well, notably talk to the European Union. And she issued some guidelines to remind everyone that this European idea we have, it's about coronavirus solidarity, not about being nationalistic and implementing your own ideas independently of what the rest of the European Union community does. So just before we go over the guidelines, I'd like to remember all to subscribe, please, and like our videos and share it with your friends so that we can continue growing our community. So the 4 guidelines that she issued are a bit over the top, and that's how we'll view them. First of all, no border crossing should take more than 15 minutes in the green lanes. Now, saying this is very good, but achieving it is something quite different. This is very much ambitious because measuring temperatures, showing papers justifying at the border, crossing and driving around a 70-kilometer traffic, it's an actual nightmare. And this is what drivers had to go through, all while the leader, Ursula von der Leyen of the European Union, was telling them that they had to take a maximum of 15 minutes and expecting it to happen. The second measure that she requested was that there were a creation of green lanes. And what are green lanes, you might ask? Well, they are only open, so they are lanes on highways that are only open to vehicles carrying goods, not people. Now, as much as this makes sense so that goods make it to their final destination, nobody's really allowed to leave anymore, so all lanes are green lanes. It didn't really make sense from the standpoint that she was giving it. Third, she decided that there were going to be a suspension of certain guidelines to ease out and make quicker the distribution of goods around the European Union. But what she meant with this suspension of guidelines is restricting truck drivers from driving during nights or the weekends, so allowing traffic to be spread more evenly throughout the day, without taking into account that this would affect the drivers a lot in their sleeping schedules, their eating schedules, because they aren't able to stay at a hostel that's shut or at a place at a restaurant to eat if they are driving at night, perhaps. So this was another criticism from her guideline. And lastly, she requested a reduction of paperwork. So Ursula von der Leyen does not really clarify what she really meant by this statement, which leaves some room of interpretation for us. So we just had some questions regarding this, which was, will drivers go above their limit of hours that they're allowed to drive? Will companies exploit truck drivers even more because they can drive at night a lot more than before? Or will all restaurants closing what are they supposed to be doing, where they're going to be eating and sleeping. And this is a true question that we had back at the time. The very strict measures against COVID-19 were hitting the poorest and the hard-working the most, truck drivers amongst them. So in order to not entirely destroy supply chains in Europe, it was essential that the goods could flow quickly and freely. But with all governments adopting these guidelines, Germany and France proved that the European spirit was racing and coming to meet. As these infections hit, for instance, the region of France, Alsace, Germany offered hospital beds in nearby regions to take away some of the pressure that France had in their hospitals already. So this was a very good action that most likely came from a reaction to Ursula Von Der Leyen's speech, which was interesting. And from this article, we remember stating that the coming weeks will show whether Ursula von der Leyen's guidelines will have had positive effects on the borders, and all we had to do was just wait and see. Luckily, for now, since this article was written 3 weeks ago, we have seen the results. And we must say that Ursula von der Leyen did a relatively good job after all. Post the initial phase of absolute protectionism and chaos, most countries are looking at what they have destroyed and want Ursula von der Leyen to fix it with their European Union money, also known as Corona bonds. So this was, in a way, a good thing because the countries in the European Union are turning onto Ursula von der Leyen for help after having following her guidelines, which means that we'll be more likely closer to a union within the European Union, ironically. But at the end of the day, she can only do so much. And she's being rewarded for that traffic solution as well. But who knows what will continue to happen. As of now, it's getting better, but we still need to be aware of what goes on. We know that one of the big victims has been the export of Dutch tulips, as they have dropped by 70%. But I think, let's be honest, that we can all survive a few weeks without the Dutch tulips. So that's what we'll be waiting for. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope to see you again on another article review session.
Please remember to subscribe and to always think that once you see it, you won't help but notice.